Arthur, who's one of my listeners, sent me this piece of audio. He was camping out there in the Allegheny National Forest, and this was very recent, back in May. Let's take a listen.
What the f*** is that?
Well, I think that pretty much sums that up.
What are you reporting?
Jesus Christ, you better...
Sir?
See ya!
Hello?
Get somebody out here.
What's going on now, sir?
That son of a bitch is about 6'9", I don't know.
Do you see him now, sir?
Yes, I'm looking right at him.
Uh-oh.
Ready for night vision.
This is Boston Billy. You're listening to Sasquatch Chronicles. Let's go, baby.
Welcome back to the show, everyone. Thanks so much for being here. I hope you had a great Christmas, and I hope you have a happy New Year. I wish you nothing but the best for 2023. Tonight, we're going to be chatting with John. And back in 1992, he was out there in Pennsylvania, and even to this day, John says he doesn't know what it was or what happened to him. But it's an encounter. It's, I call it the dirty sock incident, and I'll let John kind of go into it. And we're also going to be chatting with Leslie. And back in the early 80s, she was actually working on a farm in southeast Ohio. And she saw these strange men, what she thought were men, on this property she was working on. I'll kind of let Leslie go into it. If you've had an encounter and you'd like to be on the show, shoot me an email. My email address is wes@sasquatchchronicles.com. And if you get a chance, check out sasquatchchronicles.com. You can become a member and get additional shows. Let's jump into it tonight. I want to welcome John to the show. John, thanks for coming on.
Hey, thanks for having me. I've enjoyed your episodes, and I still think my little story here pales in comparison to what some of the folks have reported, but was worth sharing because I can look back on it and laugh now.
Yeah, definitely. And, at the time I realized it isn't funny, but I definitely laughed a little bit when I read the email. I was like, this is the greatest encounter ever. If you would take us back to 1992 out there in Pennsylvania, what were you doing and what happened?
Okay, well, that summer I was a new college grad and engineering grad, and I had been assigned. I worked for a pipeline company, and I had been assigned to a traveling team of like a crew of 5 other people who were digging up various sites on the pipeline to get ready for a water test. If anybody knows about pipelines, they're required by the government to do a water pressure test every 5 years. That goes double the operating pressure to make sure that there can be no leaks. And in preparation for that year, they had to go through and visit all these remote like valve sites and check valve sites and make some changes to where there were some appurtenances on the line to put pressure sensors and things and whatnot. So we were going valve site to dig them up, expose the line, get all the appurtenances found, then move on to the next. And there'd be a crew coming in behind us to make some changes. And we'd spend typically like 3 days out of sight. And because some of that would be hard to locate the line, then digging it was a careful process because, you don't really hit the line with a backhoe. That can cause leaks, which is, devastating. And, well, this particular place we were at was super remote. I mean, really deep in that forest between like two mountain ridges. I remember the road to get in there, you kind of had to parallel these mountains, and it was like a dirt road, state forest road that had one of these signs that said closed in the winter, no maintenance, that kind of stuff. And, it was 8 miles back by the odometer, but you're crawling at 15 mile an hour. It takes forever to get there from like a regular state road. And it was in this valley where there was a creek running through it. And then to either side were these pretty good mountain ridges for Appalachians. I mean, if you're from out west, these are like bumps. They're not really mountains, but for east here, they're good size. And, anyway, so we got to the site, and on day one, the operator that ran the backhoe, he would dig for a while, then he would hand dig, and he would, have breaks. We're trying to dig up the site. And at one point during that day, he stopped there, but hey, there's somebody up there, because the way the pipeline works, they keep a right of way clear, like 50 feet around, like on either side of it, up over the mountains. So you can look all the way up there. You can see the right of way clear up. And he said there was somebody walking up there in all black, and I didn't see it. I don't think any of the other crew saw it. I think he only saw it because he had time to kill. He was waiting while they were doing some hand digging, and then we just dismissed it as a bear. I mean, there's black bear all over the place in Pennsylvania, and I just assumed the same thing. Really didn't think much of it, and because back then I was saying, and when I wrote you, Wes, the context. I mean, Bigfoot to me then, before the internet, was something that was Pacific Northwest. You thought of the Patton film, Bluff Creek, and they're not over here. Not something to think about. So again, it wasn't even in my mind. So the next day was a beautiful sunny spring day. It was just like in May, so it was just beautiful. 70s, almost like summertime, but not quite hot yet. And I'm just keeping an eye on these guys. I don't really have much to do except for make sure they get the job done and we don't screw anything up. It was kind of a beginning, entry-level job at the pipeline. And so I had time to kill, so I thought I'm going to take a walk up there. It's beautiful. I want to get to the top of that ridge and take a look, how far I can see the right-of-way go over the next mountain ridge. And so I started up the mountain, and the way it was a very steep slope, but grassy because they kept the trees and kept things down. They kept the right-of-way clear. And, for the first quarter to a half mile as I'm going up, you could look back and see the job site down there in the valley in the dirt road. But then it came to a plateau area, and I'm guessing a quarter mile, half a mile up. I'm not sure. It was steep, and I don't remember the distance, but it was once I got to that crest point there where it flattened out, there was like a plateau, and once you advanced into that, you couldn't see back down over the hill to see the work crew. And it got, at that point, it just got real quiet. Like I couldn't hear the noise from down below because you could hear the machine operate in the distance. But once you kind of got the mountain in front between you didn't hear it. And at that point, I realized, damn, it's just quiet, like totally quiet. Like down by the creek, down by the crew, you hear birds in the forest, you hear the water trickling, you just hear stuff going on, crows in the distance. But up there, I heard nothing. And it just struck me like nothing, like complete silence. And, again, I didn't have, I thought about the bear, like, but I was making noise on my way up just in case there were a bear around. I didn't want to startle anything, but it got so quiet, it made me nervous. I just had this odd feeling. And I know you people say it all the time on your show, but just a weird feeling. And of course, when I got that feeling, I've got the urge to go to the bathroom now. And, this is in the middle of nowhere. And, and not just the easy, not just the number one. So I'm like, well, heck with it. I got to go. You got to go. And walked off the right away a little bit into the side of the trees there and found a place to do what I had to do. Again, all the while, it's just totally quiet. And I'm just marveling at that. I don't hear any birds. I hear nothing. And, finish up, and of course I'm in the middle of nature. I didn't plan to have to go to the bathroom. So I don't have anything to clean up with. So I'm like, well, gotta sacrifice a sock. So took my shoe off, grabbed the sock, did what I had to do. I had those big work boots, like with the steel tip toes, had it like mandatory, like kind of with up over the ankle. And so did what I had to do, threw away the sock, and then I was in the middle of putting the boot back on. I had it like halfway tied. And this is when like just three things happened very quickly. Like I heard two stomps that were so loud the ground shook. It was like boom, boom, and then I can't do the sound justice. It sounded like this super loud, like, you know, I don't know how to describe it, but it wasn't, I'm not doing it justice. It vibrated through me. It was just this two shakes of the ground, like stomping, and then this sound, like, you know, I can't describe it, Wes, but it was so loud it like shook through me. And I was halfway tied with that boot. I didn't even finish tying it. You know how you would say the fight or flight reflex kicks in? I panicked. I just immediately started running. Right. I'm like, I want to get back down this hill, you know, and I just took off out of the woods down the right of way. I did glance back once when I was at the crest. I saw nothing, you know, but I just was so scared because that sound was so that it vibrated through me. That's what got me. I probably could have survived the stomps, but that guttural, I don't know how to describe it. And I was sprinting down this damn hill. I'm lucky that I didn't fall or hurt myself, number one. And number two, I'm also lucky that none of the crew saw me doing that because I was a young kid then, and I was the youngest guy there, and I was just out of college, and these guys love to just harass me about anything. And all they would have needed is that, oh, he got scared in the woods, you know. So I got back down there, and I felt better as soon as I was able to see the crew and hear some of the noise down there. And like, so then I started to slow down a little bit, catch my breath, and, you know, get back to the crew and try to look like nothing happened, you know, and just pretend I'm fine. But I had to go sit in my car for a bit just to calm myself down. Again, they were busy doing what they had to do, so me being in my car didn't draw any attention to myself, and I was able to compose myself and then just contemplate, you know, what the hell was that? But then, you know, let it go. The workday came to an end, you know, and I was looking up there all day. Like, I didn't see anything, but I kept looking back up that ridge, and so I kept quiet about it. And we went back at it. We had a good hour ride back to the hotels we're staying in that night. And then we had one more day out at the site. So came in the morning, and it's a long drive in there. It's slow. And I happened to be the last person of all of us to get there that morning by about 5 minutes. And when I got to the job site, I got out of my car, and instantly I'm hearing like an argument. Like the backhoe operator was angry. He was yelling at the two laborer guys on the crew that their joke wasn't funny, you know. And, you know, and I walk up to them and try to find out what's going on. They're like, "What joke? We didn't do anything. What?" And then explain this. And here the sock that I had discarded up on the mountain a good half mile away, way up there, was sitting on the track of his track hoe, right where he would have to step up to go into the track hoe. And I know it was my sock because I just know it was because of the colors on it. It had certain color markings that matched my other, you know, I knew it was mine. And I'm like, of course I played dumb. Like, I don't know how the sock got there. And of course the operator's incensed, and the two, they're like swearing up and down, "We didn't do this," you know? And, you know, so somebody got a stick and got rid of it, and everything carried on. But that's really the end of my story. But, you know.
It has to be one of the greatest encounters ever.
It doesn't rank very high on your list of encounters, though. I never saw the thing. But,
yeah, I hear you. It's, you know, the supervisor seeing the guy up on the hill, and then as you went up there, you know, and you it's dead quiet, and then you hear the huff or the gruff, and the way you describe it, I think you did run into one of these things. And, you know, the whole sock, no one's going to go up there and get that sock and bring it back down. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I was at the mindset, like, why on earth would a bear or some animal bring that down here? It really didn't occur to me at the time again, this is before the internet and before, any like widespread knowledge of Bigfoot sightings East Coast happened. That didn't occur to me then. This only occurred to me when more recently I'm listening to your episode thinking, damn, that's what that must have been. I mean, because thinking back, that loud sound I heard, I mean, that was something angry. That was an angry sound. I mean, I don't know. It just, your body kicks in. I ran. I mean, it was, I can't even, I know sometimes you ask people, what were you thinking? I had no time to think. That was it. I just reacted to it. There was no thought.
Yeah, John, I wanted to ask you, the noise that you heard, would you compare it to like a grunt?
But a little bit longer, like it just I don't know, and like when with the emphasis on the later part, and I felt it vibrate through me. Like I've not heard anything like it on any of the sounds that I mean, not quite. It just there was bass to it that I can't like convey.
Yeah, sometimes it's hard to really describe it because the one thing that these creatures can't hide is the amplitude at which they vocalize. It's very shell-shocking to hear it. And, I kind of think that grunt is more of an acknowledgement that you're there. That's my opinion, of course. I mean, I could be 100% wrong on that. But what's weird in a lot of these encounters, and including yours, John, people don't hear any wildlife. They don't hear any birds. They don't, and you're in the middle of the forest. And what's weird is there's no noise. I mean, even the insects shut off. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, and I'm a bird watcher. I love looking for birds, especially in that area. I was looking for like, scarlet tanagers, any of those high canopy woods birds. I was looking for birds and it was nothing. Now down by the creek, tons of them. I saw kingfishers, a lot of different things there, but up on that plateau area, just dead silence. And I guess that's what got me on nerve. Maybe you do have a sixth sense. I don't know. But that that sock show up the next day, that took the cake.
Yeah, that part is the greatest, that it returned the sock. I want to ask you, this might be a hard question to answer because, when you're in the woods, sometimes sound bounces around. But when you heard that grunt or that gruff or, it vocalizing, how far away from you do you think it was?
Man, it sounded like it was right on top of me. That's why I bolted. I mean, it was definitely behind me. I was bent over tying my shoe, after I just put it back on with no sock and had it halfway laced up. And this came from behind me in the woods. And it sounded like it was west. I would have thought it was like right on me. That's how loud it was. I'm thinking I'm about to be attacked. That's your reflexes kick in. I don't think I've ever moved that fast. Whatever it was, there was an instinct that kicked in me that I had to get the hell out of there. And the adrenaline high from that, I think it took 30 minutes in my car just to get the adrenaline rush away. I can feel my pulse pounding in my ears and I came down all the way down that mountain with my shoe half tied. I didn't stop to tie. I'm like, I'm done. I'm out of here. It felt like I was going to be attacked. The only thinking was I'm running downhill. They always say bears don't run downhill very well. So if it's a bear, it's going to trip. That's what I remember thinking. If I'm being chased by a bear, they don't run downhill well.
Yeah, I don't know if that's a myth or what. I've seen some videos of black bears just hauling down hills, moving very, very quickly. And so I don't know that that is necessarily true. I understand definitely where your mindset's at, in that moment. And I want to thank you for coming on, John, because I know you were kind of iffy on coming on about the whole sock thing. A member on the site, he goes by the name Spanky. He says, anyone who hunts or spends a lot of time in the woods has sacrificed a sock. And he's not wrong. He's not wrong. I want to ask you, I ask everyone, John, what do you think Sasquatch is? And what are your thoughts?
I think it's just some kind of a hominid that just not been discovered yet. I think it's something, some kind of a hybrid species that is just that's smart enough to elude us and hasn't been discovered yet. I mean, maybe there's a supernatural or UFO thing to it. I've heard some strange sightings on that, but I mean, to me, the simplest explanation tends to be the best one, and I suspect it's just an undiscovered species, a very smart one. I mean, there's enough wilderness in this land to support it. So, and why would the Indians make this stuff up? You know, why would every single tribe of the Native Americans, you know, have an oral history of these? I mean, that's not being hoaxed. It's something we haven't discovered yet. And I hope we do. I hope like sites like this and yours, you know, by bringing to light so many people's encounters or potential encounters, that people learn to look for it and be alert for it. You know, just my 2 cents.
Yeah, well, I appreciate your 2 cents, John. And you're right. There is a lot of room out there to hide for sure, especially in North America. You know, what's fascinating about this account that just amazes me is that how the sock got there. You know, I know that you don't know how it got there and I don't know how it got there, but I think you did have a run-in with one of these things, and it kind of shows a lot of intelligence for it to return the sock, and maybe a little bit of humor too. You know what I mean?
Well, if I had to guess, I mean, just based on the fact that I think the operator of the backhoe saw it on the first day, but I'm sure it's probably a whole bunch of them were watching the crew out there. We're watching what was going on. I mean, listen, a backhoe in the middle of the wilderness is very loud, you know, and they would have the perfect vantage point up on top of that right away, just hide in the wood line somewhere and peek out and watch. I mean, you can see what's going on. And if I had to guess, I just think I stupidly went up there and then maybe they thought I was trying to mark a territory or something. I don't know. I was just nervous. And, you know, when I saw your animation on the site, I'm thinking, I feel like when I threw this discard, I mean, I whipped the sock into the woods. I didn't just drop it I threw it. You know, I don't want it anywhere near me, you know. I keep thinking, did I slap one in the face with it? You know, and it was because it had an indignant ring to it. It was so that sound was so unnerving to me. It sounded if I could attribute indignance to it, I would, you know, looking back.
Yeah, it makes you wonder if you hit it with the sock. From the point you threw the sock to when you heard the grunt, I mean, how far apart was that?
Literally, I'd say within 5 seconds. I threw the sock, began putting my shoe on. The 2 stomps and the grunt were like stomp, stomp, like all in a row within 5 seconds.
Yeah, you may have hit this thing in the face with the sock, man.
Yeah, I mean, I wish I had. Well, actually, no, I don't wish I had seen it. I'd probably be terrified of the woods to this day if I actually seen it. But, you know, that's what I'm saying. So many of your callers have like these life-changing encounters. It didn't change my life. I happen to think these things do exist, and perhaps I had a run-in with one. And would I want to see it at a distance? Yes, not that close.
Yeah, I understand. You know, this time of year has been tough ever since my mom passed away, and the holidays have just been kind of tough on me. And I got to thank you, John, because I was sitting in front of the computer, and I think it was right before Christmas. I read your email, and I just started laughing. And please don't take that the wrong way. I don't want anyone to think I'm laughing at their encounters, but it really cheered me up, and I did the little animation. I even emailed you and was like, "Hey, is this okay?" I wanted to make sure you didn't think I was goofing on you. But with the animation of the Sasquatch and the dirty sock, but I really appreciate you sending it to me. I know that you didn't want to come on the show, John, but I'm really glad that you did.
Well, I'm glad it brought some holidays cheer here. You know, it's 30 plus years ago now, and you know, I was a kid. It's funny. I was a kid then. Now I'm an old person. And but you know, I'm glad for what you do and get this information out there, because I do think they exist, and I sure hate for us to have to kill the darn things to prove they exist. I really like to just find them and let them be. You know.
Yeah, I think most people feel that way for sure. But I really appreciate your time, John. Thank you so much again for coming on.
You're welcome.
Next up on the show, I want to welcome Leslie. Leslie, thanks for coming on.
Thanks, Wes. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And I know that you had your encounter back in the early 80s in Southeast Ohio while working on this farm. Tell me about this incident.
Yeah, it was early 1980s. I want to say 82, 83, and was just on the farm. It's called the Cottman Farm, Cottman. Today it's known as Cranes Run Park. And back then it was a pretty remote farm nestled right up against the east bank of the Ohio or the Great Miami River. I remember that the house was abandoned. And my family farming operation, we would do cash rent. Some of your listeners might know what cash rent farming is. So that was one of the properties that we cash rented. And of course, the family had been engaged in a contract with this landowner for, oh my gosh, decades. So we just managed the property and managed the farm. So it was early spring. I want to say it was March, because I remember I was unemployed for some time and I was in school, putting myself through college and farming. And so we had all moved all the equipment down to this farm, which was probably about 3 to 4 miles away from our home base operation. So, once you get all your equipment down to your location where you're going to be working for however many days, it's kind of like you camp out down there, So it was a weekday, I remember, and because all the guys were at their jobs. And I was the one, hey, since you're not working right now, can you go down there and chisel plow that 200 and something acre field? And so I thought, sure, why not? I'm not doing anything. And I was always eager to run. The biggest tractor we had back then was the John Deere 4440. And that was like the Cadillac of tractors in our little world. It was pretty small comparatively to what grain farmers run now. So I was chisel plowing back and forth, and you're really busy in the tractor. So you're monitoring the hydraulic lift, you're monitoring the gauges, you're monitoring like your sprayer nozzles and the spray patterns, and I could go on and on. So your eyes are always moving back and forth, right? You're looking at the sprayer booms and checking your level of in your tanks, and making sure the depth is right for whatever like the soil conditions are. And it's really busy, and you're making these passes, and then you have timing issues as well. So you come up to the end of the field and you got a headland row, and you're trying to, okay, left brake, lift the implement up, blah blah blah, turn your sprayer nozzles off, and the whole 9 yards. So as I'm making a pass, I look over, something catches my eye. I looked over to the bank, because the field it's kind of a weird layout there. There's a wide kind of bulge on the east side of this one field, and you're right up against back then, I was always afraid I was going to fall into the river because it was the cut bank up, that cut bank side. And it was probably, I'm going to say it's a good 20 plus foot drop, because the Great Miami River is pretty wide there, and it runs pretty fast in the spring. Periodically, you have these big, calving of the bank, and I'd actually seen that several times, so I was always afraid to go over there. So I started looking over to that direction because I was moving that way, and I was getting nervous, and I started watching the river. And all of a sudden, I see, and the wind's blowing, and the dust is up, and the spray, kind of gets kicked around. I saw something in the tree line, and I thought, that looks like a hunter with a fur coat on. And I'm thinking, what idiot is out here on a 75-degree day with a fur coat on? And I'm thinking, and it's March. It's not even hunting season, is it? And I'm questioning myself. And the fur coat looked dark, like almost black, but I couldn't really tell. And the movement of this man, what I thought was a man, was kind of crouched down. And I saw a couple other people, well, who, I assume they were people. They didn't look very big. And the one that I could see looked like kind of like bent over, not totally crouching, but kind of like a forward lean. And he had something in his hand that I thought it was a gun, but I couldn't really tell. So I was moving past that and got down to the edge of the field and turned around, came back, and I thought I caught more movement. At this point in time, I was probably more than 100 yards from them. So, I was busy, making sure everything was good in the tractor and everything. So when I got down to the further end of the field, which was the south end of the field, and I was making my turn, then I realized, where'd they go? And that's when I started to get nervous and uncomfortable, because I thought, I'm down here by myself, and the guys are at work, and, we didn't have cell phones back then, of course, so, I'm kind of panicking. And I thought, well, maybe I should just call it a day. That farm always kind of creeped me out. It just had one of those auras about it. I quickly left, got back home, and at dinner that night, I told the men, hey, I think I saw these guys down there, and they were hunting, and I think they were hunting, and one guy had a fur coat on, and they're laughing at me. And then they were telling me, oh, don't, you're being silly. Just take the shotgun with you tomorrow and just watch out. So the next day, I'm back down there, and I got everything all rigged out, checked my tank and my pre-emergent herbicide and all that, And so I'm making my first pass. And I look down the field, and I see this really tall man in the ugliest gray fur coat you've ever seen. I mean, it looks like a sheep's coat or something with these, like, clumpy things hanging on, like it's just clumped fur, and it looked nasty. And I thought, wow, that guy's really tall, and he's walking with this thing on, and it's 70 plus degrees out here. What struck me as odd is how my brain worked, because didn't know anything about a Sasquatch, Bigfoot at all. And part of the reason why is because I never really was a TV watcher. Still to this day, I don't watch TV, and I'm not on social media and all that. So I read a lot, and I have certain things that I select that I watch. And I was the same way back then. I had never even seen that. It's a Boggy Creek, that movie, right? And it came out. Was that in the 80s or the 70s that came out?
Yeah, I want to say it was early 70s.
Yeah. So I was clueless. I mean, to me, it was a guy, with like a hooded fur coat on. And this is so weird how your brain just is conditioned to question yourself, disbelieve yourself, and see what you basically are socialized to see. Presets, if you will. So, all these years later, and I think I started listening to your show in 2016. I'd fall asleep at night listening to your show. Then I would go a period of time without listening to it. Then I'd pick it back up. And it's just been recently, within the last few weeks. And I started putting the pieces together. And I had an aha moment about a week and a half or so ago. It dawned on me, wait a minute. What you saw in that field wasn't a man. And then all of a sudden, I had a flood of memories and everything clicked. Germantown, Ohio, which is directly to the west across the river from Miamisburg, basically. They have a legend called the Butter Street Monster. So I got online and I'm thinking, typing in Butter Street Monster. Here are these accounts about the Butter Street Monster. And I'm thinking, okay, Les, you didn't imagine that. So then all of a sudden I remember this other, account, a bunch of kids at I think it was a high school graduation party, were at the Deer Run Lodge. And the Deer Run Lodge, in my mind, as a teenager and a young adult, I didn't really remember where the Deer Run Lodge was. So I quickly got on Google Earth and I started to assemble a map. Okay, where's Butter Street? Because the guys used to take us when we were on dates with them. Guys used to take us over to Butter Street and they'd tease us and say, oh, we're going to take you over there and the Butter Street Monster's going to come out and get you and this kind of thing. And I had forgotten that too. But that was like a thing. Like everybody would drive out into this dead-end street. Butter Street in Germantown runs like, I forget how many miles, but it kind of runs from the south end of Germantown to basically the north end of Germantown. Then it turns into, I think it's Route 4 and Twin Creek Road. I can't remember what the map looks like now. But anyway, when I was looking at the map and I was mapping this out, all of a sudden I realized, hey, this Deer Run Lodge is right next to the field where I worked that ground. And then I started connecting the dots and it was like, oh, and directly across from that field, if you go maybe 2 or 3 miles, I didn't actually record the distance on that map that I sent you, but it's a direct line to that field from the end of Butter Street, where the guys used to drive us and take us over there, right, to scare us. It's bizarre how you just, you don't connect those dots as a young person, and you get those blips of information, right, into your brain over the course of many years. So you're still thinking, yeah, well, I had that thing happen, and then I had this other thing. So you're not putting the dots together.
Yeah, there's been several accounts with that Butter Street monster. I want to ask you about the second day that you went back and you saw the creature. It sounds like it was a different one than what you saw the first time, because what you saw the first time was kind of black.
I do think there were 2 to 3 separate creatures. I think the first sighting was a younger one. It had really glistening black hair and it was shorter. That was the first one I saw. And then the 2 other things that I saw kind of back more into the tree line that first day, those looked dark too, but they were in the tree line. So I just assumed that was a shadow, they were back behind and nestled into the tree line. So the shadowing there made them look dark.
Yeah, and as I was reading your email, you had mentioned that second one that you saw, what was it, about 100 yards away?
I think it was closer to 200 yards away. And it's hard for me to be sure because I'm only 5'4", so when I was in the John Deere tractor, right, sitting in the seat, you're up high. And I realized this second creature, the gray one, had to be really tall and big because I guesstimated that he was 150 to 200 yards away from me. Not quite a tenth of a mile, but, somewhere around there. And, he had to be really tall. I mean, super tall, because I'm in that cab and I'm thinking it's 8 feet high where your head height is in the cab of the 4440. So this individual had to be pretty big. I mean, huge. It struck me as an old man, and it was odd because I had this fur coat on and it was walking kind of lumbering, and it kind of reminded me of this character that we used to watch, this stupid cartoon when we were kids, and I can't remember what it was called, but there's a character and it was called Gumby. And it was this little green guy, and he kind of, you'd have to look it up, and it's pretty stupid.
Yeah, I remember Gumby.
Oh, do you really? So that kind of forward hip kind of look, the hips kind of push forward and the legs kind of shorter than the rest of the body, the upper body was really super long, and the lower, the legs were shorter, and it was disproportionate. And the only reason why I can say that is because I remember thinking that fur coat like is moving with his legs, and he's so big. Not like hulky, like real muscular or that kind of thing. Just a tall, slender, older guy kind of lumbering through the field over towards the river. And that's what I saw.
Yeah, and over 40 years later, you're still, this is something that's still on your mind, and it doesn't sound like you ran into a man by any means. But I'm curious, when you were watching him, was there anything about its movement that made you think, okay, that's not a man?
Yeah, I remember, I was just getting started, and I think I was moving at that point in time, and I remember that, I was kind of testing out the soil conditions and how deep I needed to let, the chisel plow blades go in and that kind of thing. And I was doing a couple tests with the spray and that kind of thing. So I was busy in the cab. I remember glancing and seeing it and dismissing it. Oh, there's another black hunter down here. Then I looked back to see where he was, because I was getting ready to actually start really making a full pass, because I had done a couple tests, short little pulls, and just to see where I was with the equipment. Then when I looked back, I thought, he has a hood on, and it is like 70 plus degrees out here. And I remember thinking, I can't see his face. He's just all hood. And that, I thought he had like a fur coat with a hood. But then I realized that I couldn't see his face, and I thought, that's really weird. Like, I can't see his face, but he's just got this hood up. And then I started working, with the tractor, and you're kind of turned sideways in the tractor all the time. When you're driving, you got, your hand basically on the hydraulic lift lever all the time. You're watching your gauges and your hoses, and so by the time I looked back, he was gone.
Yeah, and I've said this many times on the show, but hunters are notorious for this. They'll go, I've never seen Bigfoot, but let me tell you about this weird guy I saw in a hoodie. And after all these years, if it would have just been a hunter out there or a human being, you wouldn't be thinking about it 40 years later. You know what I mean?
You're exactly right. Why would that even register in my brain after all these years? I remember thinking, you're in a situation where if that person is not friendly, you could be in serious trouble. But when I watched him that second time, that I looked over at him, he really reminded me of an old man, an ancient man. Like, he's a really old guy. He's not going to do anything. And the way he was moving, like this lumbering kind of motion, where his upper body was pretty straight and not pivoting. Like, how when, you walk, you're a grown man, you're a big guy too, like, right? So your arms kind of swing out away from your body when you walk, right? Typically. And your shoulders kind of swing a little bit, and your arms kind of swing a little bit. Well, this individual, I do remember that, because his arms kind of looked like they were plastered against his side. And they were bent, like at wherever that elbow is, right? So I do remember that. They were bent, and almost like his arm and his hands were hugging his quadricep. He was kind of leaned back into his stride, where his lower body was a little forward. And I just remember thinking, he's got really short legs for how tall he is. Like, he's all torso. That's what I remember thinking. And there was no like swiveling at the hip. It was just that's what it reminded me of Gumby. And the day before, that other individual I saw, that one, even though it looked smaller and significantly smaller, the way it was postured, the crouching, kind of almost like it was going to pounce on something, but I thought it was a man. So I thought he was kind of like crouched down with his weapon, with his rifle, because he had spotted something and he was getting ready to shoot. And I do remember thinking, man, I hope he doesn't fire that thing off while I'm out here plowing, because I don't know if this guy's got it all together, because he's out here with a fur coat on and it's 75 degrees out. I mean, it's kind of funny because I'm thinking, he's got to be like not fully there, because he's got the fur coat on and he's got a gun. And it could have been a stick for all I know, like a big branch or something, or some other thing. And I just, like I said before, how you're socialized to think that's a hunter with a fur coat and he's got a rifle. What an idiot. It's 75 degrees.
Yeah, and the two that you saw kind of in the back of the wood line, in the background, were they about the same size as the one that what you thought had a stick or a gun?
They were definitely smaller, because I remember thinking that's a dad with his sons. That's kind of my thought. Maybe like, tweener boys, 12, 13. And then there was the dad with the fur coat on. That's exactly what I thought.
Yeah, and I could understand your mindset on it. I mean, if you don't really have any information or believe in Bigfoot, I mean, it must be a guy out there. He's weird as wearing a fur coat and when it's so warm out, and he seems to be pretty big. But I could see why you would go, it must be a hunter out there with his kids, Did you ever go back to this property after seeing these individuals?
Oh, yeah. I mean, this is what's so bizarre, is that I would be down on that farm by myself all, through the early spring through late fall, right? So, and there were times where, like, if I would be down there, maybe, one of the guys would be running the combine and I'd be sitting like in the semi or one of the straight trucks waiting for it to get full with grain to haul it down to Central Soya or Farmersville or wherever I was going to dump the grain that day. There'd be times where they'd leave, like to go get more fuel. Like we had a fuel truck and a big water truck, and we had certain trucks that did, were rigged out for certain things. So then I would just be down there like waiting. Sometimes we'd run auger wagons, and as the combine was running through the field, depending on how much, yield we were getting, and sometimes the yield would be so much that the hopper in the combine wouldn't hold it all. So then I'd be running the tractor with the auger wagon, and I'd be running alongside so that we could auger over as we were combining the grain into the gravity wagon. So then I'd drive that back, and then I'd auger it over into the semi or the straight truck. So there were times when I'd be literally like by myself down there for hours and hours, sometimes days on end. I'd come home, basically go to sleep, get up the next day, go back down to work, come home, So I'd be down there, and sometimes, in the fall, we'd be running 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. The weather's coming in, the beans are ready, the corn's ready, we got to get it, it's dry, moisture level's just right. Hey, we got to get it out of there. We can't wait another day. And so we'd run all night. I can't tell you, it just flabbergasted me to this day. I'm thinking, holy smokes, I'm down there all the time by myself. And I do remember there was one day where I used to have a bet with the guys that I could walk in huge, numbers of deer along that river corridor, and just the Cotman farm, just tons and tons of deer. And this is the difference between then and now. Back then, deer were afraid of us. So were the coyote. You almost never saw a coyote. You almost never heard a coyote. You never smelled a coyote. Deer, you would be lucky if you catch a glimpse of them. They knew who and what we were, and we weren't their friends. So every now and then, you get a glimpse of the classic doe, the two doe with, one or two fawns. And so it was a little bit later in the spring that year. And this is after I'd seen these individuals or these creatures. And I remember teasing with the guys that I was going to wait till I was downwind of where they would huddle up. And I'd walk in on them and I'd watch them and I'd get some pictures. And the guys are all like, "You're never going to do that. They're going to smell you, blah, blah." So I remember that day, they were so tucked away. And I did walk in on them. But it was weird because there were way more deer there than I thought there would be. And I thought, why are they all huddled up here? It's like they're scared. And they weren't just grazing casually like they were relaxed. These were like terrified deer, and they were afraid to move. And I think maybe that was part of the reason why I was able to walk in on them.
Yeah, it sounds like an area where possibly these things were hanging out for some time, especially if the deer are reacting that way. Did you ever see these individuals ever again?
No, I never saw them again. I don't remember ever smelling anything, like something raunchy, just dying. I don't remember because, my brain didn't even know that these things existed. I just had no reference point. So I wasn't looking for them and I wasn't, you know what I mean? Like, so they could have been standing right next to me and I wouldn't have known they were there. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, it's a very interesting account because that area does have a ton of sightings there in Southeast Ohio. I ask everyone on the show, Leslie, what do you think Sasquatch is? And there's no wrong answer, but what is your opinion on what these creatures are after all of these years?
I want to say that they're part us. These creatures that I saw behaved enough like a human that I thought they were humans. So to me, they, we're related somehow. And just the behavior of that second one. Wes, if you'd seen this individual, and I say individuals seriously, that's a on purpose, purposeful statement. He reminded me of a grandpa that was just moseying along through the field, checking the field out, like 80-something-year-old guy just kind of moseying along. And all the mannerisms, the mannerisms, the movement, just to me, it's a crime. It's criminal that law enforcement and the national parks and these other government entities, they're us too, right? We pay their salaries. It is angering to know that I wasn't aware that these creatures were out there and that they're just like, if they are just like us, which you get this kind of like this instinctive feeling that they're as diversified as we are. They're as different and as psychopathic and narcissistic and, we have every manner of human on this planet, and humans are pretty awful creatures at times, and anything that we could possibly imagine, humans can do even worse. And I believe that these creatures are just the same. It's like the flavor of the week, right? Like, ooh, hey, this guy might be great, and this one over here is going to be horrible, and this one over here is going to eat me.
Yeah, I think that's a fair answer, Leslie. And, a lot of times when people see these creatures, the first reaction normally is, hey, there's this huge guy out there, not that there's this huge animal out there. And as they're describing it, it obviously isn't human, but I think that they could be, in our family tree. You could be 100% right on that. And it's hard to argue that because a lot of times they act a lot like animals. Other times they act like humans. I know people say we're animals, but you know what I mean. And the whole Butter Street monster, I've actually looked into that. There's been a ton of sightings out there dating back many, many years. And it's a fascinating account. I really appreciate you taking the time to come on and share it with us.
Oh, you're welcome, Wes. Thank you. Thanks for having me. It was my pleasure.
Thanks again, Leslie. And that's it for tonight, everyone. Remember, if you've had an encounter, shoot me an email. My email address is wes@sasquatchchronicles.com. And if you get a chance, check out sasquatchchronicles.com. You can become a member and get additional shows. Until next time, everyone.
My wheels unturned to go alone. Baby, you should know that you're gone. With the lights on, this is my home. Place where I own memories of you, dear. Until your eyes close at the sky, I'm mesmerized. Memories of you, dear. I saw moon as a human and lighter, and its power grew wider. So I put my speed a little wiser.